All right, here we are at Abu Simbel, the one of the largest attractions in Egypt and one of the most iconic temples that you're ever going to find in the country. This is up in Abu Simbel, which is right on the Nubian border and has these absolutely stupendous, massive 20-meter tall figures, all of Ramses II, just to show off his power, his strength, and the majesty of Egypt to the Nubians coming in. You'll notice down along the bottom here, we've got all these little figures of his wife, of his mother on the two insides, two of his sons, and six of his daughters. You'll also notice one of the things I find quite interesting, this guy here, second on the left, looks like something happened to him, and this actually happened hundreds of years ago. Um, this was all moved, and we should talk about that very, very briefly. This temple didn't exist here, it wasn't made here, but when they flooded the dam, they created a dam and flooded the river and turned it into Lake Nasser here. Then we ended up with the possibility of this being overrun and flooded. So it took a 4.5 year project to take every block, or take every piece, cut it into blocks, bring it back, set it up 180 meters across and 60 meters higher so it would avoid the waves. Now, this second statue here, when they got to it, even in the 1800s, was already broken. And when they decided they would move it in the 60s and relocate it, they decided that they would leave the torso and the head exactly where they found it rather than reassemble it and make it what it once was. You'll notice as we go along our statues of Ra, statues of Horus and Ra Horekti, which is Ra, the son of Horus. But I want you to picture coming through here and just being surrounded and encapsulated by these massive, massive columns. If we were to take a look on here, notice all the graffiti. I hope you can see that. Let's see if I can, there we go, lighten it up a bit. There's one about 2/3 of the way up in between two cracks right in the center of the screen. That's actually Greek. That was done by Greek soldiers that came here with one of the kings to Aswan and Luxor, and they continued sailing up to sea here. So this is one of the most oldest pieces of graffiti that we're going to find. And it helped us figure out the ancient Greek writing, some of the pieces of ancient Greek writing. You notice along the side all of these war captives, the Nubians over on here, are very different sort of, and they call them Asiatics over here, right? All strung up, all captured, all not victims, all war captives by the mighty Ramses. Here we see him heading on in, right, making offerings to the gods. Here we go. Right, the god of the river over here. And in we head in towards the sanctuary. Now the sanctuary has three main pieces, three main courtyards. And we're going to talk about them in turn until we finally get to the end. This is our first hypostyle hall, and just look at the ceiling, which is still an amazing piece of color. On this side, we have Ramses again, massive statues of Ramses. You'll notice that he's wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt. You'll notice on this side, if I can spin quickly, he's wearing the double crown of a united Egypt, and it's harder to see. But there's a second crown, an extra piece, and either birds or bats up ahead. But let's keep on walking. Let's imagine ourselves coming into this temple, passing these huge statues of Ramses. Now, Ramses right now is in what we call an Osiricide position, with his arms crossed, mummified, the same way that Osiris was. So in reality, he's kind of calling himself one of the gods. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But for now, let's just admire the artwork. Let's admire the pieces and just take a quick look. Okay. So we're going to go on to our second section, our second one. This is our second courtyard, which has 4 pylons and less light, so it'll be harder to see. But our 4 pylons here, 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll notice they're square columns. They are a little bit less developed up top, but what used to have some really amazing pieces. Let's take a very quick look around. I'm going to point out a couple of things later on, but let's just have a very, very quick look. There we are. Ra-Horakhti giving power and dominion to Ramses the Great. There again. Thoth, our god. Again, receiving offerings. Now, this is the absolutely holy of holies. This is the inner sanctuary. We're going to take a quick look and then we're going to talk a bit about it. Now, this is the inner sanctuary, and this has 4 gods in here. Okay, we can tell Amun by his big double feather crown. We have Ra-Horakhti, which is the sort of the sun god associated with the south. We have Osiris, and we have Ramses right there, right to Amun's left. Now what this said, Ptah is over here, on our far left, not Osiris. What this is saying is that this is a row of the gods, and Ramses has deified himself, turned himself into a god. Now, before I say too much more about that, I'm going to turn this around because this is really cool. On February 22nd and October 22nd, right, 61 days before and after the solstice, this whole process, the sun's rays, and I'm hoping that really lights up, the sun's rays would shine on through all the way down, and they would hit 3 of these gods, these 3 right here. So they would be bathed in this wonderful light right here. And our 4th god, fourth god Ptah, is the god of the underworld, so he would always be shrouded in darkness. So he'd be off to the side, sort of this shadowy figure. We'll notice up here our bark, our ceremonial boat that would carry us into the afterworld. Or optionally, if I can take a look, these people are taking pictures of each other, so we're going to wait a second. Should be on this side another boat for the boats of Ra and Horus. Let's take a very quick look. There's one for Amun. There's the other one for Ra-Horakhti. Okay, I'm going to pause it for now, and then we're going to take this up a little bit later. All right, we're going to back up just a little bit, and we're going to head out of the inner sanctuary and off to our second courtyard. And I'm just going to see how I can do this without gangling it. Here we go. I just want you to notice the quality of the sculptures, the quality of the reliefs and the paint. Even after 3,000 years, this was built 1264, 1244, it took 20 years to make. These still retain all sorts of color, all sorts of detail, all sorts of pieces. Here again, I just want to take a very quick look. Here again, we see, if you can see that, the ceremonial boat once more. One for Amun and one for Ra-Horakhti. We see Amun up here along with, looks like Isis and Horus, perhaps? Perhaps. I love that piece just right there. But what we see as well is the other ceremonial boat, right, carrying off. And I'm going to assume if the other one was Amun, this one would be Ra-Horakhti. And all of the bearers going along. Right? But let's just take a look. This is a beautiful piece. This is a beautiful temple and is well worth a visit. Totally understandable why you would want to come and check all this out. All right, we're going to avoid the crowds and we're going to pause and meet you back in the first corridor or the first courtyard. All right, we're back in our first courtyard. I'm just going to continue on and we're going to take a look. Most of the first courtyard is dedicated to Rameses II's victory at the Battle of Kadesh, and this is probably one of the most famous of the pictures. Here we have the absolutely powerful Ramses leading his chariots through the Battle of Kadesh, shooting arrows at the enemy as they flee from him. Right? We're going to move over a little bit, and there he is, larger than life. Bundles of war captives held in his hand by their hair, huge rod ready to smite them and utterly defeat them. Let's move up a little bit, and we're going to take a look at the ceiling. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but there's some beautiful, beautiful wings up there. The vulture, the traditional symbol of protection that would have lined all the way down along the temple. We'll come back down, and we'll just take a very quick walk through, but look at this. Just the size and the shape and the whole movement process of our victorious Egyptian army going after the enemy at the Battle of Kadesh. Looking to see if I can find a picture I'm looking for, and there we are with our captives being led off. One of the things I just want to point out there are these beautiful little side antechambers. It's absolutely quiet in here. It's silent as. And these were rather extensive. Let's just take a quick look. You could walk all the way up and down these and just marvel at the carvings and the paintings and the pieces. I don't know if that's coming in really well or if it's a little bit too dark, but it is absolutely beautiful. Let's continue on into this site. Move in a little bit, take a better look. Look at that, Ra-Horekti receiving the offerings, the cartouches. That's Ramses' birth name and his coronation name right there. Here he is making offerings. Just a big lineup. Now I'm guessing that these little alcoves were all here so that you could put statues in there. Now obviously they've all been removed, everything's been taken out, but this would probably be a place full of statues of the gods. And along here, all of these pieces, all the people giving offerings to all of the gods. Well, obviously not all of them, but all of the main gods from this area and from Memphis down under. Okay. But just an amazing piece, absolutely beautiful. And of course, if we were to continue on, I'll go over here. I'm just going to watch my step. I have to go a little bit slower that way. Look at that. Oh, Sakati. Right, the lion. Just amazing pieces. Let's walk back out. Let's see what else we can find. We're going to go to the other side just so I can take you through a walkthrough. Right now, not really going to say too much else. But I do want to just walk you through and let you enjoy all of the beautiful artwork in here. Not to mention the little bits of graffiti, which piss me off to no end. It's interesting. One of the things I find that I absolutely marvel at, there's graffiti here from like 1825 and whatnot else, from explorers who came. There he is again, up in his chariot. Explorers who came in and rediscovered these things and inscribed upon them their names and the dates. And so you have this graffiti from the mid 1800s. And at that point in time, is it now graffiti or is it history? Always a great question. Let's take you through a walk through this one. Again, nothing in particular that I really need to explain to you or show you. I just want to walk you through because it's totally amazing. Even the long line of hieroglyphs along the roof. Now, one of the other things I find is absolutely astounding about this is that this was never here. This was cut into the rock of a cliff face that was a few hundred meters away. And what they did is they cut it all out, put it all back together, and then made a new cliff around it, which would have been just an absolute marvel. And I can only imagine 5 years and people from all sorts of different professions and areas of expertise helping to make sure that all of this turned out right. Because let's face it, one small mistake and this whole thing collapses and you lose it all. And that would be a shame, because this is absolutely crazy. And this is not very well lit, so I may not spend much time here. Not gonna lie, I've never been in this part before, so I have no clue what I'm gonna find around the corner, but I just love the exploration. It's astounding. And the amount of time and craft work and art that would have gone into this, number of man hours, not to mention all of the blocks and pieces that got cut and redone, would have been mind-boggling. Let's just walk you through one last piece, one last room before we give this one a bit of a rest, because I know you've probably been Egypt out. So let's just introduce you to our last little piece, this antechamber here. And then we will walk our way back out and start back to where we started. I'm hoping I'm walking slow enough that you can actually see it all and that you can check out some of the details. It's not as detailed, it's not as quite as intricate. I'm just going to stop at this one. You can notice that there's a lot of fine work in there, but it's not the level of detail that we see at some of the other ones. Say, for example, at Dendera, or Edfu, I think, was another one with a whole lot of detail. But the sheer scope of this, and to make all of this, you imagine these Nubians, these I'm not going to call them bush people, but people that were not quite as civilized as the Egyptians, coming into a place like this, coming to visit or coming to trade or coming to give whatever it may be, and seeing all of this all along the walls and being entranced by the stories and the pieces, not to mention just the sheer artwork of it all. We come in as tourists today and we are amazed that this was done, and twice as amazed when we realize this was done 3,000 years ago with tools that we would describe as primitive. But imagine what it would have done to the Nubians. And this was really the reason why this happened. That we would show the Nubians just how great and mighty the Pharaoh Ramses is, and we're going to leave you with him. Have yourself a great time, and thanks for joining me.